think the idea of nature play and this call to action, providing children with more time to spend out in nature, in North America especially, started with this book.
I'm wondering, there were no nature there, it was just free play. Does that count with this definition as nature play? To be honest, for me, this is a huge question. Every time that I go outside, like this neighborhood, it's only us outside.
To me, the number one rule is slowing down and not having an agenda. These books are filled with ideas about what you can do, and maybe even develop some fun signals with your child. Tell them, whenever I howl, you have to come to me. Or if I make the sound of a chickadee, like if I go chickadee-dee-dee, you have to run to me. Or, something like that. Just like ideas like that to make it more exciting. If you're outside and you're cold, you don't want to be outside. You don't want to go again. You don't even want to go out. But I think the bigger piece for Indoorsy folk is the community factor.
What is your mission now?
My mission, or I should say, the big question in my brain.
Sara, thank you so much for making this time. I am so excited to talk about nature play.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm going to give a bio about why I decided to talk to you today and why I want to learn from this talk, and then we can get started. Today, I'm talking to Sara, a mom who transformed her parenting approach to connect to her son with the wonders of nature. Despite not being outdoorsy herself, Sara was determined to create meaningful nature play experience for her son. Starting with small hikes and playgrounds in Vancouver, her journey was full of challenges, low participation, legal concerns, and learning from scratch. But it led to profound discoveries about parenting, nature, and herself. If you have ever wondered about the magic of unstructured play or the courage to step outside of your comfort zone as a parent, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Okay, Sara, let's start with the bare minimum. Tell me, what is nature play? When someone came up with this word in general, and give me a brief history about nature play.
For sure. This is a great place to start. I think I'm going to start with something that will sound very familiar to you and probably lots of our listeners. I was born in the 80s, and I think in my generation, we've all heard stories from our grandparents and maybe even parents about how they used to play outside in nature in rural areas or suburbs where they lived that were surrounded by wilderness all the time. So playing outside in a natural setting was the only way to play, really. And within the span of 2 generations, there have been some major changes in how children play. And that partly has to do with people moving away from rural areas and farming communities to cities, and partly has to do with the dominance of screens in our daily lives, starting with the advent of television and, later on every child holding a tablet with unending programs that are designed to capture their attention nonstop. So this is when researchers started to notice developmental health and wellness issues in children that are spending long hours in their day sedentary in front of a screen. And I think the idea of nature play and this call to action, providing children with more time to spend out in nature in North America especially, started with this book that was published in 2005 by Louv. He is a journalist and an author, and the book is called Last Child in the Woods.
Oh.
In this book, he reported that in just a few decades, childhood has moved indoors and disconnected from the natural world. And he outlines this crisis that is unfolding in the healthy development of children, in the lives of people, adults, and for our planet as well. And he proposes how this can be changed. And essentially, this comes down to free play out in nature in a very connected way. But, like I said, in terms of when it came about, who thought of it for the first time, this was just how human children played for thousands of years. It's really just changed in the past few decades, and it's become this novel thing.
So, Sarah, I have one question. So, like our generation, after school, I do my homework. Then we have that I remember we had that half an hour on TV. And then we were allowed to go outside on the street. It was like a very small like street. So like it was not busy. So it was safe for our age, like 8 years old. We knew when a car comes, we shouldn't go on the street. And we were playing there was like free play for hours. Imagine from 5 p.m. We had to come back home around 8:30, and we would beg my mom, could you please let us play for another hour? And normally she would let us like do that. Now I'm wondering, there were no nature there, it was just free play. Does that count with this definition as nature play?
That's a great question. I love this question. I would argue that it does, simply because you are outside in fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
And nature, in my mind, is different from wilderness. So, nature can be like tiny little sprouts outside, like popping out of asphalt in a blacktop surface. It can be a little weed that's poking out of a brick wall. It can be fresh air, just having a view to the sky, looking at the clouds. So these are all natural elements in different scales. And I think a kid that's playing will be exposed to nature, regardless of whether they're in a suburban or urban area. Wilderness, though, is a different story. It's when you make an effort to be away from man-made environments and head out. Typically in North America, you have to drive out to a national park or a provincial park here in Canada to kind of get away from all the asphalt and all the cars and all the buildings.
Yeah, I'm wondering, this is not hard at all, what you're explaining. And we had that in our neighborhood in Toronto. Like the kids would go on the street and there were other kids. Toronto is very colorful. So like my neighborhood were from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mexico, Spain, China. Like this was my neighborhood, very colorful. And you could see kids coming out, and like boys would gather playing basketball at one corner, and girls were having a small picnic with their dolls. And it was so easy to be like, to be honest, for me as a parent, because like after 6-7 years old, I could watch the kids. Everybody was watching the kids from the windows, and they were allowed to play outside. And she had fun like after school or on the weekends. But this is very rare today. And to be honest, for me, this is a huge question. Every time that I go outside, like this neighborhood, it's only us outside. And I know there are a lot of neighbors who have kids, and I rarely see them outside. For me, this is a big question. This is very easy. We get outside, we play with chalk, I don't know. You might not have an answer to that either, but I'm like, why not? Why you don't bring your kids outside? We don't have to go like drive far away somewhere here, there. Sometimes we do that. So like we go to a playground, but like the easiest way is just in your front door, like front yard, driveway.
Well,
I don't know.
I have a theory about that. Something that I've been noticing is overscheduling children. I wonder if that has to do something with this. I've seen examples of, 7-8-year-olds heading out to a certain extracurricular activity, like at 5:30 in the morning, to get there at 6, to have their class before school, take a short nap after that in the car, head out to school, and after school, kind of same story, either like tutoring for some subjects or yet another extracurricular activity. And they go to bed at like 10:30. I've seen this with my own eyes. Yeah, it's pretty out there in my mind. And I mean, in the competitive culture of North America, I kind of get it. I kind of understand why parents might opt to overschedule kids with all sorts of things during weekdays and over weekends. But to me, that is one of the biggest reasons why children don't have time for free play, either in their own home, in their backyard, on the street, or out in nature exploring and having adventures. The way children learn all of this is through play. And that's why play is so important. I can see how my own child works through things that he observes and learns in his play, either pretend play or just unstructured play that he kind of plans for, and there's no like supervision or no guidance.
Oh my God, Sarah, I love that. I couldn't agree more. And this reminds me of today we went out. My 1-year-old, it's really interesting how they can find something to play. And it just, so what he did, he like, Donna found a stick and Donna was using everything as a drum. There was a bin here. That was her play with 2 sticks. And then she dropped the sticks and my 1-year-old took the stick and the chairs, they had small holes in it, a lot of small holes. So he started putting this stick in the hole, trying to take it out. And at some point he realized, oh, it can go all the way down. So if he could manage the angle, and I was like, okay, this is math. This is science. Are you kidding me? And how did you, and I took like one of those car toys with me and I gave it to him because he was getting frustrated. I gave it to him. So he has another option. He didn't take that option. He preferred the stick. He preferred the sand. And both of them are like that. They prefer the small things that they find in nature. And I was like, wow, it's so amazing how they can find something to play with he could play for half an hour. That 1-year-old's brain is just scattered everywhere. But for literally for half an hour, he was doing that. And he was trying different types of experiments with that stick.
That's fascinating. I love that. I read somewhere that pretty much internationally, the number one toy in the Hall of Fame of toys is a stick. Like globally, it's the most loved toy, the best toy, the most versatile toy. So I'm all for sticks all day, every day.
Oh my, I didn't know. That was a very interesting point. I didn't know that.
Yeah, something you mentioned about the 1-year-old kind of awareness of the surroundings. It's called the Lantern Consciousness, I believe. It's by Alison Gopnik. She's a psychologist and she did a whole lot of research on infants and introduced this idea that infants and small children, their consciousness is like a lantern. It lights up everything around them to a certain distance, whereas adults have a spotlight consciousness where they have an agenda, they have a goal, and their consciousness, their awareness is kind of shining towards that goal just as a spotlight would. So they miss out on a whole lot of other things outside of that spotlight. And this is exactly what you observe in a small child. It's almost like they have eyes in the back of their heads. Like they see everything, they hear everything. It's fascinating. And what better kind of context for this kind of awareness than nature, which is where we evolved in. Our bodies, our brains have evolved to be in that context and to like gain as much as possible from all the sensory input that nature provides. So yeah, you basically just have to take a kid outside in any degree of like wildness and however many natural elements are in there, and just watch the magic unfold.
And it helps me I feel, to get that, vision that you're talking about, because he hears all the birds all the time. He sees them at any time if they are in the sky. And he would look at me and I'm like, oh, you're referring to that. So I start hearing that and I start seeing that. So it's like, he's helping me growing that vision as well, it feels great that I can,
absolutely.
when I'm in nature, I can hear birds now. I'm more aware when I'm with him because he is recognizing stuff. He's like pointing to them or just talking to me in his own way that I'm hearing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I basically consider my child my mentor. Whenever we're out and about, I'm like, okay, you lead, I'll follow.
Oh,
You see way more than I do. And I want to be in that same mode of being that you are.
oh my God. So you say that and it helps me to remind myself that when I'm out with Donna, and I don't know what is this sense of urgency that I have, like a lot of us have. I think it's like a habit because there are many times that we don't have anything to get to. If we want to get home, literally, it's just, why do I want to get home? And it's not even about getting home. She would be like, okay, as you said, I have a goal to go hiking, right? So we start the hiking and 10 steps after that, she would be like, oh, I want to sit here. Look at this. I want to picnic here. And I keep thinking about my goal. And we would be like, because I get bored, to be honest. Maybe if I listen to her, I won't. I don't know. It's just, I get bored. I feel that my goal is to have, to walk a little bit, to have a like workout, exercise, use this as an exercise. I don't know. I cannot understand my logic behind that right now. But now that you're saying that you let him follow him, I'm like, I rarely do that. This is a very different mindset. If I change my mindset and I go hiking with them and that's my mindset, I'm not going to get bothered by, is it possible that I don't get bothered by that? I don't know. I need to try it.
That's fantastic. I love how your brain is working and how you're considering a different way of approaching it. So to me, being out in nature with small children, you manage your expectations, you set them up realistically. And to me, the number one rule is slowing down and not having an agenda. You're the support. You're just making sure that this magical thing is happening in a safe and healthy way. And yeah, you're just stepping back. You're not inserting your own kind of fast pace of life and your agendas for like fitness or whatever into it. That doesn't mean you can't do your own jumping jacks and like squats in the corner there. You certainly could, but as soon as you set the expectation that way, you're not going to believe how much joy and meaning you'll get out of it.
I feel that it's going to be a good meditation for me. I'm trying to find meditation time here and there. It's just, I feel that I forget that I have that meditation time already when we are out, like, and when I say nature, again, I mean, just maybe on the street, but right, like today we had that time and I could feel it. I could hear the birds. I could feel the fresh air. That is meditation.
Yeah, totally. This is something I noticed since my kid was very small, that one of the biggest gifts he's given me is the gift of mindfulness. It's almost like I don't have a choice but to be mindful when I'm with him.
I'm so excited to do that. No agenda, get out and watch them. And even if I get bored, I can do some like yoga, pose and enjoy. Like I enjoy if I do yoga pose in the nature. Well, like, what is a better meditation than that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I love that. I can't wait for you to try it out and let me know how it goes.
I will. Thank you. Okay. I want to know something. Why nature play became so important to you?
So in the first few months of motherhood, I was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, and going walks in fresh air had an incredibly calming effect on me. So it was kind of a must do in order to be able to just function. And as the months went on during my maternity leave, I remember waking up and all I wanted to do was to get everything done as quickly as possible, so my baby and I could just head out on small little adventures in between like nap times. We would just choose a park and hang out for as long as we could. He would become mesmerized by the leaves dancing in the wind and the shadow of those leaves on his face and on the ground around him. I would watch him look at this and focus on all of this that's going on around him. And this was something that I couldn't give him in our apartment. So it really started to feel like we belong more to the outside, to nature, more so than we belong in our apartment. And as he started to walk and explore as a toddler, our little outings in the park were filled with these like little science experiments, as he would do this famous toddler squat, looking at every little flower and every weed and the ants and moss on the trees. A kind of a fringe benefit of that was no signs of tantrums whatsoever when we were outside.
Wow,
So
you're right.
we were both so much calmer, and we would come back energized, happy. We would get great sleep. So these were all kind of observations that I would make. So thinking about children like thousands of years ago, how would they engage with the environment? There weren't any toys, there wasn't any entertainment. How would they entertain themselves? A very famous naturalist, he is called E.O. Wilson, and he basically talks about this idea that humans on a genetic level, they're drawn to nature and they have this like love for nature. Not everyone agrees, but I can feel it in me that because I am a natural being, I have this affinity and this love for nature. There was a time where I was feeling, oh, I feel like if my child doesn't hear cars going by, I feel that he becomes a bit nervous, almost as if the quietness and the peace is scaring him. I noticed this when he was like maybe around 2 years old. And I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. It's almost like the soundtrack to his life is the hustle and bustle of the city. And that was problematic to me. So I didn't have prior knowledge or research. It all unfolded with that moment of observing my child and digging into it and finding this whole world of advocacy for getting children out in nature. You know, starting with Richard Louv, he started this foundation, the Children and Nature Network. It's based in the States, and they do a lot of advocacy for educating parents, caregivers, educators, and school teachers and administrators, and also, you know, in terms of funding for providing children with opportunities to have equitable access to nature and outdoors play. And so, you know, as soon as I started to look into it, one book led to another, and I realized this whole world of benefits for children spending time outside.
So what I hear, this moment happened and you started educating yourself about this idea. What else did you do?
It basically, the way it unfolded for me was I felt like I don't have time to do the research first, buy all the gear first. We have to head out, and I'm going to learn as I go. It started with just me and my son. I slowly started to take steps towards gathering the right gear and the right clothes to be comfortable, and also to build a bit of a community. I just set up a text group with my friends who had small children, same as me. And I told them my son and I are heading out to a natural area away from roads, away from cars. So again, more of a wilderness, but not treacherous or like easy enough for, you know, a 2-3-year-old to like walk on, or stroller friendly. And I told them, join us if you like. And some weeks they would come, some weeks they wouldn't. I would say most of the time it was just me and my son. But when another child came, again, there was this added layer of curiosity and joy as my child would observe them engaging with nature. And they would discover things together, and they would start to like chat about it. So from there, I decided to take yet another step in educating myself. As I was doing all this reading, I signed up for apprenticeship at a forest school to learn a bit about just the basics of being in the wilderness with children in terms of safety, in terms of the activities you can think of, especially for older kids if they get bored. Also, just learning more about this place that I live in through this apprenticeship, all the different provincial parks that are in the area that I necessarily wouldn't explore the same way as I would with experienced forest school leaders. And I also decided to make my little nature play group public. So same as many other groups, I put it all out on Facebook and started to kind of talk about it a little bit in homeschooling, unschooling, and also kind of outdoorsy family groups in Facebook to see if I could find more like-minded families with similar values. There's just a whole other level of fun and engagement when kids are together. So that was kind of my goal.
There are a lot of points here. So right now I want to talk about each one separately. Right now you have a Facebook group in Vancouver that you are like trying to have more people, if they are interested in nature play, with the younger, older kids, to just go on a weekend, right? This is what you're doing, right?
That's exactly right.
Were you successful? Did people come with you, or are you having and did you find a community to do that?
I wouldn't say I've found the community yet. I faced some legal concerns, which are not fully clear because I have a free nature play group without any money being exchanged, without a contract per se. It's a bit murky what my legal responsibilities are if there is any kind of incident or like injury for children or anything like that. So that was a pretty big road bump. Similar models with nature groups, forest schools or even nature play groups. Typically, there's a fee and there's a, solid contract and there's insurance. And I didn't have any of that. So that was a bit of a source of hesitation for engaging with strangers and made me think that probably the best way for kind of worry-free adventures for me at this point would be to kind of go back to the same model as before that I did with my friends. So it's clear that every parent or caregiver is responsible for their own child. The community building aspect is to be determined, but I think a recommendation that I would have for everyone in this is to start with your immediate family and friends, especially for, people that work full time during the week and you just have the precious weekend for moments like this. Just to eliminate all the barriers and obstacles that might pop up and all like the unforeseen or unintended consequences of things that are unknown to you or risk factors, to like try and eliminate all of that as much as possible so you can get the most out of the experience.
Most of the time it was just you and your son. Now that you had that challenge and now that you have more experience, do you have a way to motivate them more to join you?
That's a great question. I am thinking about reaching out to them and asking them what would make it worth their while, especially considering how, we talked about children being overscheduled, all the extracurricular classes that kids, even around 4 years old, are enrolled in. So people have to prioritize. And I was thinking to put out a survey and ask them, what would work for you? Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's a scavenger hunt in the forest. Maybe we're heading to observe something in particular, like salamanders or, salmon. There's an abundance of subjects like that children would be very interested in. And it's just an excuse to get them out. And as soon as they're out there, the possibilities are infinite.
Okay, now that you talk about this, I feel I wasn't as creative as I should have been for the hiking adventures. So if I say hiking without thinking, she would say no. Now I realize I shouldn't even say hiking. I should say, let's go for a scavenger hunt. For me, I feel, oh my God, it's overwhelming. Now what idea should I come up with? How do you know that? How can I get that information?
So I would say start small. Start with a simple idea like a scavenger hunt or like playing a game out in nature, or even something as simple as telling your child that, hey, we're heading out. We're going to step away from the trail and you lead the way. I'm going to follow you. I don't know anything. You're the leader. Children love to be the leader. And this is not called a hike. This is called an adventure. And it's like treacherous and very exciting. So start with something like that. And there is this great book. It's called Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature. It's by a famous naturalist called John Young. And in that book, he talks about all the different games that you can play with kids, even older kids, teenagers. There's another great book. It's called How to Raise a Wild Child. I mean, also Richard Louv's book, Last Child in the Woods. These books are filled with ideas about what you can do. As soon as you start looking in your local library, you'll find so many resources about nature play. But like I said, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Like even a simple game of tag with your child in the forest is going to be completely different than the same game in a park or a flat surface. Even running, just navigating the uneven terrain of the forest floor with all the logs and like the rocks, that has an abundance of opportunities for coordination, problem solving on the fly, just visual analysis of their surroundings, awareness, gross motor. The list goes on and on. And maybe even develop some fun signals with your child. Tell them, if whenever I howl, you have to come to me. Or if I make the sound of a chickadee, like if I go chickadee dee dee, you have to run to me. Or something like that. Just like ideas like that to make it more exciting.
I'm so not creative. I'm gonna just use exactly that sound that you made.
Do it. And you know what's even better? To tell them what kind of sound they want to make as their signal. It has to be loud. It has to be high pitched. Maybe you turn it into a research project. Research different sounds that different birds or animals in your area make, and choose one as your signal to make sure whoever makes this sound, we all get together.
Nice. Okay. Tell me now for treasure hunt. So like I just take stuff with me. Okay. I know my daughter would like, she hates tag, but she loves treasure hunt. I know. So I just take the stuff in my pockets and bags and stuff. And then randomly when she doesn't see me, like I just hide them somewhere in the hike trail. That's what I do.
I would go there a bit earlier if you can manage that, to get there first and hide the little treasures and kind of have a mental image, or even take photos or have little signs for yourself to make sure you don't lose them. You definitely don't want to leave what could be considered garbage, like plastic toys or anything. You don't want to leave that in the forest. You also don't want to leave candy or food in the forest that could be bad for the animals. So just make sure you kind of cover your trail and don't leave anything behind.
One thing I noticed about my daughter was that she was more interested when the trail was a little bit more challenging. We went to Tobermory, which is in Ontario, close to like 5 hours from Toronto. And this trail, it has a little bit of difficulty to it. To be honest, at some points, it was too difficult that I was like, if she didn't succeed, she might go in a really cold water. So I was like, oh my God. But I didn't say anything. She loved it. And I didn't have to make up any games for her to go like that on that hike. And she was upset because we got to a point that it was water and we couldn't pass that point because the water was so cold. So we had to go back, and she was not happy about it. And I was like, wow. So if the hike itself, without any games, it's boring. Yeah, it's just walking for her. But when it's challenging, I feel she's in the flow zone. So what I realized from what you say is we need to create that flow zone.
I think it's in our nature to challenge ourselves. And as soon as something is just above what we're comfortable with, but we're still able to do it, it stays challenging and interesting, and we stay motivated in it. And children aren't any different. But I think something that can add to the depth of the experience is maybe including some tools. So a magnifying glass as you're studying mushrooms, or like moss or lichen on trees, or like little critters as you like lift logs or rocks, or binoculars. Binoculars are fantastic.
Sara, I was thinking, so like you told me that I don't know in this talk or when we talked before, you were an indoorsy person, like you were not outdoorsy at all. And I talked to some of my friends before I talked to you, and some of them have like this difficulty. Like she tells me and she wants to be that person for her kids, but she says it takes so much mental energy out of me to just get out of the house. She's trying so hard to do it. Do you have any advice from a person who might have the similar experience when she started doing that? Do you adopt to this? Finally?
I think that you do. I think number one is making sure that they're comfortable and when they're outside, whether it's hot or cold. That was a huge factor for me. If you're outside and you're cold, you don't want to be outside. You don't want to go again. You don't even want to go out. But if you're nice and warm and dry, especially like in our climate in Vancouver, Canada, staying warm and dry is critical to feeling like you even want to go outside. But I think the bigger piece for Indoorsy folk is the community factor. I think if you have someone to hold you accountable, someone you can meet when you head out, especially if they have children of the same age, when we're heading out with someone that my child is interested in, he gets ready in a flash. Like, I don't even have to tell him to put on all his gear and like be out the door. He does it before I do. So I've seen the impact of community, and that's why I'm trying so hard to build it. So if you're lucky enough to even have one friend that's game to join you in your adventures, I think that's probably the best way to help you get out. But also making sure there's something in it for you, that there is joy and fun in it for you. You are also personally motivated. Maybe it's making sure you have your favorite drink with you. You take your hot cocoa, or, in that activity, there's so much connection with nature and foraging and gathering and then like creating the dyes out of it and a product. So projects like that, I'm sure there has to be something to interest the whole range of like people out there in terms of engaging with nature. There's just like the possibilities are endless.
Oh my God, I feel that I need to watch this talk all over again, just like, again, taking notes and one by one make all the plans. I'm so excited to do that. And I feel all the people that are hearing you would feel the same way. Because you have a passion when you talk about it, and I'm feeling the same way now. I'm going to read all the books that you just mentioned, and I'm going to just, figure out, photography, maybe I want to take photos of my kids in the nature, and I can put them on the wall. They're going to be so beautiful.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm so happy to hear that. And I can go on and on and on about all these ideas that I have. And I'm definitely learning myself through the books I read and this apprenticeship that I'm a part of. And I would love to provide resources if I can, or ideas. I'm always happy to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to hear about that, Sara. So I heard that your next step is to try again with your own community, and now in a more refined way. What are other next steps in your mind? What is your mission now?
My mission, or I should say, the big question in my brain is what will happen when my child goes to school? So I want to make sure that his exposure to nature is maintained as he grows up. A part of that is really becoming familiar to the place that we live in. So the ideas of place-based learning, tapping into the knowledge of generations of people that have lived out in nature, especially the Indigenous community here in Canada, and learning from the relationship that they have with the place and the land.
Sara, thank you for this. I have just a random personal question. You can answer it or you can pass. Has there been any time that somebody believed in you when nobody did?
Wow, this question makes me emotional. I think the most profound way I experienced this was with my son. The way he believed in me in a way that I have never believed in myself. And that has been the force that has propelled me into all of these unknowns that I've been exploring since becoming a mother. My life was very formulated and everything seemed to be on a predetermined track before becoming a mother. But as soon as I had my son, everything changed. My eyes were open to so many different possibilities, different ways of being, and I owe all of that to him.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful, Sara. You made me emotional. Thank you.
I'm barely holding it together.
I love it. I love your answer. Thank you so much, Sara. You are so knowledgeable in this area, and I'm so happy to have you here. And thank you so much for taking the time and share that knowledge with us. I am super excited, and I am super happy that I could learn this from you in the span of, 1.5 hours. And I enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I loved our chat. And like I said, I'd be happy to come back and report back on my next steps. And,
we will.
How things go and all the things that I learn.
Yes.
I'm always happy to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, Andisha.
Bye.